We were very fortunate enough to have Mr. Andre Norman. Andre tells us we are all united by the human condition, regardless of race, gender, nationality, or economic status. All of us struggle at some point with feelings of hopeless, failure, isolation, and loneliness. And you see that every day at your work. At some point, we all need someone to whom we can relate to. We need to hear and experience the stories of people who have faced failure and insurmountable odds, yet have somehow managed to overcome. Mr. Norman is internationally recognized as an inspirational speaker, specializing in motivation and leadership. Andre's keynote lecture is derived from his own personal experience. His resiliency and perseverance helped him survive an abusive father, illiteracy, gangs, and incarceration for over 14 years. Despite all the economic challenges, Andre is here today to speak to those who we feel make a difference. Without further ado, Mr. Andre Norman.
Good morning. All the places I thought I'd be standing. This was never on my list. Didn't make the bucket list, but I'm here. As introduced, my name is Andre Norman. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, born and raised, and I've been selected to be your speaker this morning. And when I got the call, it's still amazing to me that folks want to hear from Andre, because I still fight and struggle sometimes with, am I worthy, do I deserve this, or have I made enough amends to be even invited to go someplace? But I stopped a few years ago asking why, and just said, okay. And just started showing up to say, if I can be helpful, then allow me to be helpful. This morning I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to talk about myself, then I want to talk about some of the work that I do. Then of course I want to speak about yourselves, because this is about you. This day is to say thank you. This day is to say that the work that you're doing is beyond admirable, it is immense, it's vital, and it's succeeding. As stated, I was born in Boston City Hospital, 1967. My mom already had 2 kids, but her first husband, who happened to be a bank robber. So he goes to jail for robbing banks. So I don't know if he was teaching in 1965, but he pulled up in the wall back then. After she left her husband, she met my dad, a local drug dealer, and she had 4 more kids. And we lived happily in Dorchester, Massachusetts, and everything was good. 6 kids, mom and dad, except for my father had a habit of beating my mother. If there was a dispute in the home, if there was a problem, or he just had a bad day, he would just reach out and slug her. And to come home from school in the 1st grade and see him up with a black eye, or come home and there'd be pandemonium in the home, wasn't an unreal occurrence for me. And I thought it was normal. I didn't know at 6 years old that everybody's mother didn't get punched in the face when she said something wrong. I didn't know at 6 years old that if your father kicks the door off the hinges, that it doesn't happen down the street. Where do I go? This is what I am, this is what I know. And in 1970, for those who were around, and I'm looking around the room, I see some of y'all here before the 70s. It's called handling your household. You had full right to harm your wife in any form or fashion you saw fit. And if should the police did show up, they would tell you, keep it down, buddy. And that's just how life went. And we would come home, and some days it'd be crazy, and some days it'd be normal. And that's how life was. And one day coming home from school, my brothers and sisters on the bus, we're riding down Geneva Avenue on our way home, and rocks crashed through our bus window. And behind the rocks came some names. The first was Nigger, then Porch Monkey, Spare Chucker, and a bunch just like it. We jumped on the floor as glass smashed and names smashed, and the kids on the buses were like getting crazy, know what to do. And I'm laying on the floor of the bus looking at my cousin, because he's 6 years old as well. And his face is cut by the glass. I'm crying, watching him cry, not knowing what's happening. And when we get home, I go in the house and see my dad. See, I'm the smallest of my father's children. So when I go up to Dad's about 6'5", 6'6", 300 pounds. I said, Dad, make this make sense. Who are these people? Because I'd never met white people before. Why are they throwing rocks at me? I'd never had people throw rocks at me before. And what are these names? I had never heard these names before. And my father looked at me. I looked at him. It was like one of the father-son moments. Then he walked off. And I was left as a 6-year-old to process the busing crisis of the 70s. See, what I didn't know at the time, but I found out as an adult, was my father grew up in a town called Petersburg, Virginia. And he would walk home with his brothers and sisters. And kids would line up on the side of the road there and throw rocks at them and call them similar names and chase them home. And when we got home to his dad, my grandfather looked at his father and said, "Dad, who are these people? Why are they throwing rocks at us? And what are these names?" My grandfather looked at him, his dad, and said, "Son, that's just the way it is, run faster." Eventually, my grandfather moved his family to the Great North, where he thought they'd be free of such actions. So to have it repeated, the next generation was probably traumatic for my dad, because he thought it'd never happen again. But even more worse than the names, than the rocks, was nobody explained to me how to process this. And I was left as a 6-year-old to process this whole event. One day it started, then one day it ended. I came home from school one day and Dad was just gone. My father had been put out of the house by my mom. She had enough of the beatings, enough of the drama. So I'm 7 years old, I'm home, trying to figure out life. There's 3 lessons I learned from my father. 1, it's okay to hit people. Because if my mother can be hit, anybody can be hit. 2, I better protect myself. Because when people came at me with vengeance and hatred, nobody stood up for me. And 3, I don't have to explain myself to anybody. Because when he walked out of the home and just decided to go wherever he went, he's never said a word to this day. So if he doesn't have to explain himself, I don't have to explain myself. That's just how the life was. And those are the lessons I took into the world. So now we have a single mom, 6 kids living in the hood. You don't need me to go on from there. And you can see that on the CNN special this weekend. I mean, there's enough of those now with the single mom living in the inner city, 6 kids trying to find a way. She's working 2 or 3 jobs. We're poor. I didn't know it at the time. When the lights went out, she called it the candle game. So she liked candles. Like, oh, we thought we were playing. We were little kids. We didn't have food. We make do. We say, oh, we're having hot dogs and beans Saturday and Monday. I'm like, wow, it's a treat. Because Saturday was hot dog and bean night in my house. We got hot dogs and beans every Saturday bar none. So we got to get on Monday. It was like a treat. We didn't know this wasn't no money to buy anything better. And that's just how it was. Then we switched houses because we couldn't live in my dad's house. We moved to a new town called Mattapan. And it wasn't far from Dorchester. And we go to a new town, you go to a new school, you get to test to find out where they should place you when you're grade. Well, when they tested me, they found out I was illiterate. I couldn't read, write, or count, just like my dad. So they had a thing back in the 70s called the dummy class. They took me, they put me in a room, and they closed the door. They said, you dummies, sit here. And we'll get back to you later. And it was completely acceptable. Me, Melvin, and Thaddeus went to dummy class every day. We sat in that room and we just did nothing all day. And it was okay. My mother knew it, the school knew it, whoever else knew it. Andre can't read or write, no big deal. Knowing what I know now, that is one of the worst sentences you ever put a child to, sentence him to literacy. Luckily for me, my dummy teacher took a vacation. I don't know where dummy teachers go on vacation, but they go to the shore, the real shore, or the other shore. But she went someplace. They take all the dummy kids and they spread us out throughout the school. They're the ones that cause so much havoc. So I'm in Miss Oliver's class acting a fool like I always do. She said, sit down, Andre. I'm like, ha ha ha. She said, sit down, Andre. I'm like, come on, man, you know I'm from the dummy class. What you want from me? And she came over, grabbed me in my collar, and slammed me in the chair. And she said, I said sit down. She had no understanding I had watched my mother be beaten for years. She had no understanding that I had been stoned and called names many a times. All she knew was there was a kid in her class who had potential that wasn't paying attention. And she took steps that you no longer take today, because you would actually be in one of your classrooms. Those days are out. But I appreciate them while they were there. And she did one of the biggest favors for me ever. She took me out of the dummy class and she put me into her class. And she sat with me from the first bell until the last bell. And she found out my learning style. Because 95% of kids learn one way. You put it on the board, you read it, they get it, it's fine. I'm not that kid. You have to sit down with me and make it make sense. But once it makes sense, I can take it from you. And she found Andre's learning style. And she started teaching me, first out of fear, then out of respect, and admiration and love. I did whatever that woman said do. And by the end of the 3rd grade, lo and behold, I could learn. And I went on to my further grades, 5th grade, 6th grade, I got to middle school, and I caught up. It's not a big learning curve in Boston Public Schools. So I caught up to the other kids, and I was kind of functioning, and I was doing my thing. But in the 6th grade, I found out that we were poor. Because the other kids had new clothes, and new shoes, and clean pants, and food at home, and all that wonderful stuff. And they would make fun of me for wearing dirty clothes. I found out what hygiene was when other kids made fun of me for not having it. I found out what dirty clothes was about when kids made fun of me for having them home. That you weren't supposed to wear dirty clothes to school. Then when a friend of mine came up with a great idea to sell weed in the park, I'm like, sure. We went down to the park, we started selling weed, and we made some money. Now I can buy clothes and I can take care of myself, and you couldn't tell me otherwise. And by the time I got out of 8th grade, I'm a full-fledged criminal. It was like, this is what we do. But in the 6th grade, I ran into a teacher, Miss Ellis, the one black teacher in the all-black school. I don't know how they do that, but they managed it. And she was a music teacher, and I begged her for an instrument. She said, are you crazy? Give you an instrument? But I begged and she finally gave me a trumpet. And I played that trumpet every day. So we didn't have PlayStations and iPhones and tablets and iPads. We had sticks, we had hide and go seek. You say, get hit by a car, go to the hospital, get some free food, come on. That's what we did. So I'm playing my trumpet every day. And I was wonderful. 8th grade came, the 8th grade play. Frankie and Johnny was a selection, and for some strange reason, I took to the judge's room. I wanted to be the judge. And since I was one of the coolest kids in school, I said, I want the judge. They let me be the judge. And I sentenced Frankie to die. I stood behind a black cake, and I was like, sentence her to die by electrocution. I sentenced her to die. And I was like, damn, I'm like, yo, this is cool. I went to my friends after the play. I said, I want to be a judge. They said, huh? I said, I want to be a judge. They said, dude, let that one go. You're a criminal. You can't be a judge and a criminal. No, I want to be a judge. They said, let it go. They said, yo, dude, you can't be a judge. You're black, you're a criminal, you steal for a living, you sell drugs, this doesn't work out. So I dropped my dream of being a judge. When I got to 9th grade, I went to a school called Madison Park. And I went there to play the trumpet. It was a magnet school. My friends came up to me and said, Dre, black folks don't play the trumpet. What do you do? That's stupid. We're in the street every day, man. Come on with that big case, you're gonna get us caught. So my friends convinced me in 9th grade to put down my trumpet dream. In the course of 18 months, I lost the only 2 dreams I've ever had. So now you have a out-of-control kid with no dad in a single family with no dreams. It just spiraled really down fast from there. And I wake up one day in Middlesex Superior Court in front of Judge Chernoff, Paul Chernoff, and he started reading sentences. 7 to 10 years, Walpole. 2 9 to 10s, Walpole. 2 10s, Concord. 2 15 to 20s, Walpole. They put me in a van and they drove me to Cedar Junction, which has been kindly renamed for some strange reason. And they dropped me off. And when I got there, I was happy. Because I had worked really, really hard to get to Walpole. All my friends were there. They were like, Dre, what took you so long? We needed to come forward. We got a game tonight. Come on, man, suit up. And I got in with my friends, and they taught me the rules of being in prison and how we should act and how we should conduct ourselves. And it was all bad. And in the first 10 months of being in Walpole, I found my way to 10 Block. And after 2.5 months of being in 10 Block, they kicked me out. They called the federal government, put me in a car, and drove me to Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, and dropped me off. They said, we can't handle him, he's too violent, too encouraging. My first 20 days in Lewisburg, I watched 20 men forcibly raped. Numerous men stabbed, and there was a few murders. And it told me, this is serious. And I got real serious too. And over the next 2.5 years in the federal system, I became extremely violent. When I came back to Massachusetts after the feds kicked me out, I came back to Walpole, this huge, lame guy who survived the feds. And after being back about 10 months, I tried to kill 8 people in the gymnasium in '91. They put me back in SAG, and I was laughing. I'm like, this is all fun. This is all gaming. We stab people for a living, we sell drugs, and we just have a good time. And while I was in SAG, some friends of mine had gotten hurt, and I was about to participate in retaliation. And I had a moment of clarity. And in that moment of clarity, God said to me, Andre, don't do this. And I got mad when God spoke to me. Like all of my life, there's been no God. When my mother used to get beat, he didn't show up. When kids threw rocks at me, he didn't show up. When my sisters got touched, you didn't show up. All the times I was hungry, you didn't show up. For every Saturday I sat on the porch, waiting for my father and he didn't come, you didn't show up. When my sister became a crackhead and started selling herself at the corner, you didn't show up. All my life, you've been not here, so why you want to be here today? And me and God argued, but in the end, I went back to my cell and I sat down. When I was sitting in my cell down in Norfolk, I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? That gladiator thing is over. And I came up with an idea. I remember Miss Oliver, Mr. Henderson, Miss Lane, Mr. Bevilacqua, Mr. Herman, my 7th grade track teacher and math teacher, Mr. Duvall, one of my favorites, who taught me rock climbing and leadership, even though I flunked his class. I remember every teacher who ever said a kind word to me. And they all said the same thing: Andre, you're wonderful. You have immense potential. We believe in you. We love you. And I said, I'm not going to listen to my parents, if that's what you want to call them. I'm not going to listen to my homies anymore, if that's what you want to call them. I'm not going to listen to my fellas. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to believe that I can be what they said I could be. So my plan was simple. Okay, they always said, Andre, go to college. I said, I'm going to go to college and be successful. I picked a school called Harvard University. And I picked it because that's why I used to ride my skateboard when I was a kid. So when I came out my cell the next day, I got all my friends. I said, listen, homies, I'm out of here. I got it. I figured it out. They said, what's up? I said, I'm going home. I'm going to college. I'm going to be successful. End of story. They looked at me like, huh? I said, no, I'm going to go home. I'm going to Harvard. I'm going to be successful. They wanted to laugh at me, but I had a habit of stabbing people. So they let it ride. Just like the good friends that they are, one of them came to me and said, yo, Dre, man, what do you mean going to Harvard? You're black. You're a criminal. You're doing 25 years. Dude, we're in set. You were talking about killing 7 people yesterday. You can't go to Harvard. You're one of us. We need you. You're like our guy. And all I heard was the same people I heard back in the 8th and 9th grade who took my dreams away and talked me out. I said, not today. There's a quote in the Bible that says, stand behind me. And I was like, move. And I went back to school. It was my step 1, my GED. And my GED teacher's here in the room. Where'd she go? My GED teacher from the DOC is officially in the building. And I came back and I went to GED. And she said, I love you, and I got my GED. And after I got my GED, I went to counseling. Flight anger management problem. I needed some help. So I went to counseling, I got therapy every day. And one day, my homies came to me in the alley and said, yo, dude, why do you go to this counseling? Every day you go to counseling. You're the smartest dude in this building. Why do you go to counseling? I said, dude, my father's been in jail. My stepfather's been in jail. My older sister's been in jail. I'm doing 18 to 25. My older brother's doing 20 to 30. My oldest nephew just caught his 5th and his 3rd gun case is on his way back. I'm not gonna do cousins, uncles, and homies. Dude, I stab people for a living. This ain't normal. And if going in that room is gonna make this not normal, then I'm going. They halfway got it, so I said, let me explain something to you. I'm going to counseling tomorrow. I got 2 options. I can either go in there and talk about my dad and how that's not working. I can go to you and get my knife, come back and stab the hell out of you and talk about that. So which do you prefer I talk about? He said, dude, you gotta work it out with your dad, man. That's fine when he gets to you, man. You need to work that out. And I kept going to counseling. I kept going. And along the way, I found a mentor, by chance or by divine grace, named Natan Schaefer, an Orthodox Jewish rabbi. He took me in as a mentee. And all the prison guards were telling him he's dangerous, you shouldn't let him in your program, he's not Jewish. He said, this isn't about being Jewish. This is about teaching. And every Wednesday I went to Jewish services and I sat with a rabbi. And he taught me respect, accountability, forgiveness, responsibility, and giving back. Those are the things that I learned from Natan Schaefer at MCI Norfolk. When I left him, I ran into 2 more people, 2 nuns, Sister Ruth and Sister Kathleen, 2 Catholic nuns, who embraced me just the same and walked me through. And it's just been countless people showing up. They say, you know something? We want to help you. And on November 15th, 1999, I came home from Norfolk Prison. I came home from the prison to the parole office to a youth center. I did my first talk 90 minutes after my release. I went in and I told those young men, you're not going to jail because you're criminals. You're not going to jail because you're black or you carry a gun or even because you smoke weed. You're going to jail because you can't manage what's happened to you. Your father's disappointed you, your mother's tapped out, your sister's in the street, you can't read that book. And your feelings are hurt, so you self-medicate what you call getting better. And then you come out in the street, you act up, and then you find yourself locked up. If we can help you learn how to deal with who you are, this won't be necessary. And I've been doing this work since November 15, 1999, until today. I just flew in from St. Louis, so I'm running a program in St. Louis, and you love this. I'm helping reconstruct the St. Louis public school system because it's so hard. Program's called Saving St. Louis. They brought me in, they said, Andre, why doesn't this work? Can you go in and help us make this work? And I walked through that school, the worst school in the worst city, and I looked at every possible reason why kids weren't learning. Always were dirty, teachers didn't care, people weren't paying attention. I walked through and I looked at it from the perspective of a child who had nothing. I walked through with the perspective of a child who was in pain. Because when I was in high school, all my teachers spoke to my potential. I wish to God they could have known how to speak to my pain, because my pain blocked my potential. I wanted to teach and inform the teachers in St. Louis how to look beyond just the potential and speak to a person's pain, because that's what's holding them down from being what they should be. I've been blessed in the last 12 years to have some really great friends and some really great mentors. And I've been given the opportunity, for some strange reason, to travel around the world to educate people. So I've had the opportunity to go to Sweden, Barcelona, Saudi Arabia, Australia, Costa Rica, Haiti, before and after the earthquake, Dominican Republic, Canada, and probably like Bahamas. And I'm actually training people to do better and be better. And it all started in a small room with my GED teacher. Where's she at? Can she stand up, please? Stand up. I just want you to know, the people you're teaching, we do listen, we do learn, and we can strive. I know it seems like we have extreme problems, and we do. We have educational problems, we have emotional problems. Well, you have to fix both. You help me fix my educational needs and deficiencies, and somebody else help me with psychological. And I put those two things together, and lo and behold, it's kind of like what my mother said, boy, if you take 10% of your energy you use to do wrong, to do good, you can change this world around. And this holds true. And I'm not standing here saying, look at me. I'm standing here saying, look at Miss Allah. Look at you. Because the work that you're doing reflects in me. I am not possible if there is no prison education. If the status quo is let them break rocks, if the status quo is just lock them in cells because they're animals, or if the status quo is because they were once violent inside, we shouldn't help them, I would not have been helped. But when I was ready, you were ready. And you didn't hold against me my past. You didn't hold against me my present. When I showed up with a nasty attitude and didn't want to listen, you still taught me. And because you taught me, I'm able to go around the world and now save lives. Because that's what I do for you. And it's only because someone took the time while I was locked in the cell to say, you know something? This man deserves to be educated with excellence. And I've taken that excellence and I've taken it on the road. And I just got called last week of going to India for a month to do trainings and interventions all across the country of India. And it's only because I stand where I am today because of you. When I speak at high schools around the nation, and I speak at detention centers, I ask the kids, what is 2 plus 2? They say 4. I say, if I take you to China, I say, what is 2 plus 2? They say 4. I said, if I take you to Harvard and ask you what 2 plus 2 is, they say 4. If I take you to a prison cell and ask you what 2 plus 2 is, they say 4. And I explain to them, education does not change based on where you learn it. Education will take you any place that you want to go. If you become educated, you become universal is my message. Because I became educated and I became universal. And I guarantee them if they refuse to become educated, they will be local. They will walk 4 square blocks, whether it's a prison or their neighborhood, for the rest of their lives. But if they become educated, all things become possible. And there's not a lot to it. It's really, really cool. There's got to be more to it than that. And I was sitting down with a lady at lunch the other day, and she got mad about my GED. She's like, that's all you got? I got an MBA, and I got this. So, well, you ain't doing nothing with it. It's pretty nice to have stuff, but you got to do something with it. I said, my GED is working. And it's making a way for me. You get up every day, you go behind these walls, and you're forced to see and witness and deal with things that the average person should never. But you keep showing up. And in spite of the horrific things that people do in between class, you still show up. I just want to say that it matters. It matters tremendously. I got a phone call or Facebook message about 1.5 years ago. We see you with Ted Kennedy, we see you with Richard Branson, we see you with all these famous people. We do a Skype call for our kids in Guatemala. I said, what's that? They said, well, we put you on video at your end. We videotape and put you in front of some kids on our end. I said, well, how about I just come down here? They said, we're in Guatemala. I said, yeah, I heard that part. They said, well, it's so far. I said, well, do you have an airport? I said, I'll tell you what, I'll get myself from here to the airport and you pick me up and I'll come down. And I paid my way and I went to the airport in Guatemala. They picked me up and I did 7 days of training. I saw some stories and some things that made my upbringing look really, really basic. These people lived on dirt floors, lived in trash dumps, and had nothing. But we were able to get numerous kids in school. We went to schools, to villages, and talked to parents about the power of education. And if you don't want your child picking up sticks for the rest of their lives, get them in school. And we were able to have those conversations and pull people out of bad situations and give them the power of education, because I now understand what it can do. And I learned it from you. You will never get thanked enough. You will never get applauded enough. You will always be brought up when something bad happens. I'm sorry for that. It's not fair, but this isn't a fair world. But I just want you to know, it's possible. It is extremely and definitely possible that your students can go on and become anything they want to be, if you just give them the chance. And regarding my dream of going to Harvard, I haven't attended. I actually went to BC. I found a better school. I'm Eagle. But I've given lectures at Harvard Divinity. I've given lectures at Harvard School of Government. I've given lectures at Harvard Afro-WAM and Harvard Law School. I've given lectures at MIT. I've taught my own class. I was a professor at Tufts University. I've taught at London Business School since 2002. So, and I know some people don't say, wait, he said he got a GED. How's he a professor at Tufts? I always have to say this. There's a disclaimer I must give, because there's some people down the hall around the corner who say, I knew he was going to say something wrong. Look, I told you, look. They never changed. Well, my official title at Tufts University was visiting lecturer. But I designed the class. I wrote the syllabus. I gave all the lectures. I graded every test. I listened to every sad story them kids had when I turned their papers in. I got a check at the end. It didn't equate with the work I put out. So technically I was a visiting lecturer. But in my hood, on my block, they call me the professor. And it all comes down to caring. I've heard it said, well, white folks can't teach black folks because you don't have the experience. Well, this group can't teach that folk. Well, I stick with the white folks can't teach black folks. That's what we got here. And I've heard it. And I tell people, it's not about the color of the person teaching. It's about, does the person care? Because I'd much rather have Natan Schaefer, an old white Jewish man, teach me what he taught me because he cared and he loved me, than some guy who's from my neighborhood who looks like me who doesn't care. Caring counts. It's not about color. First step in making a difference is caring. And I always tell people, if you give a teacher a half a chance in a good situation, they'll give their left arm and half their paycheck to educate somebody. But you have to give them a fair playing field and opportunity and support. This agency, this association today is about support. So please embrace it. Please make the most of it. And don't ever quit. Because I'm so glad that you didn't quit on me. And have I arrived? Am I perfect? By no stretch. But I'm in progress. I'm definitely in progress. And for those who don't know, I just want to say thank you to the Merrill Sheriff Service Department. Sheriff's already left. About 2005, I got a call from John McMillan and said, Andre, we need you to come help us. We'd love to have your services here. We believe that you can add something to the House of Correction. And I was given the opportunity to come in and do a reentry class. And I can honestly say, since 2005 to today, I've been working on and off with the Sheriff's Department, and it's been a great experience. And I've been in prisons across this country on both sides. And I can honestly say, and I tell people, Middlesex Sheriff's Department is the #1 agency that I've seen in this country that is serious about education. They go above and beyond actually trying to educate people incarcerated. I've got emails from Sean McAllen at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday talking about, Andre, there's this kid in B Park. I need you to speak to him. I'm like, dude, I'm looking at the email on the timestamp. I'm like, what is this dude doing? He's a superintendent. He's like sending me emails at 2 in the morning on a Saturday. Committed, sincere, and they have more programs there. The sheriff was going on and on earlier, and he should. I mean, he was going hard, but he has justification too, because Middlesex Sheriff's Department has great programs, wonderful programs. And I can honestly say it's the best programs I've seen in all my travels. And the staff has been equally committed to making it happen. So I definitely want to quickly get a round of applause for Middlesex Sheriff's Department. If ever, because my time's up and we have to get to our coffee break. Got some good coffee out there, I heard. But if ever, I can do anything for you. I can come to the institution and say something to a group, or there's a guy who got out, you want me to give him a call. It's my life's dream to be helpful. It's a blessing and an honor when people call me and say, Andre, can you help us? And if I can be helpful, call me. Hi, Dottie. Teacher down in South Bay who helped me out early in the beginning. I was going to South Bay doing programs. I've been in a few places doing programs. And for me, it's not about the money. If I can help you, you don't have a budget, don't worry, call me. I've never not gone based on budget. If you have a need and I have the ability to help, I'll be there. So if you convince yourself, well, he's not going to show up or he's too busy, you've done it to yourself. I owe you, and at any time I can support you in what you do, please call me. It'll be my pleasure, my honor, and I look forward to it. But enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you.